Duckies and Dice Fiends, welcome in. It is that time. It is Tuesday, and that means it's the Table Talk Show. I'm Kay. I am one of your hosts. You can find us here. David, I think we're playing Baldur's Gate Thursday and Friday this week. Like, are we actually doing this thing?
I mean,
are we actually back to it?
Yeah, I think we're back to something resembling a normal schedule.
So yes, we will be doing that. And other than that, find us here Tuesday for more of this. Who do we have next Tuesday? We have, hey Rex, how are you doing? Who do we have next? We're going to learn about the Kickstarter that just happened next week. That's going to be cool. But that is not what we're here for. This week we have an incredible guest that I cannot wait to talk to. But before we do that, David, who the heck is you and what the heck is you doing here?
Hi. I am still searching for consent to touch the Elden Ring. Hi, I'm David, and this is the Chaotic Wholesome Presents Table Talk Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, why D&D is a good starter system, even though it's complicated. And there are arguments about that. How to be a better person, all with a focus on inclusivity and intersectionality so that everybody can have a good time.
And yeah, I've talked about what we're doing, which is not much, but next week we are going to have the final game of Magnificent Pride, which had to be rescheduled. So remember that, David, Wednesday, next week. You're in the production chair again.
Yep. That when we were talking about getting back to normal, my first thought was like, well, next week's not gonna be normal because Wednesday I'm gonna be in the trenches.
Good. This is why I keep you around, because you are awesome. And we are here with a very special guest. So, William, who the heck is you, and what the heck is you doing here?
Yeah. Hi. Hello. Hi. I'm. My name is Will. I'm all over the internet at a Will M Scream. I guess I am technically a TTRPG content creator, podcaster, editor, a little bit of everything. I've been doing this for like almost 4 years at this point. Otherwise, the other things that I've described as myself as a lapsed music journalist and a lift heavy things enthusiast.
We have 3 lift heavy things enthusiasts here. Uh-oh.
We could just talk about that for now.
Music journalist.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music journalism are we talking? Because there are multiple types. Because I was a show. Yeah. I was the person who showed up and they're like, here's $50, write copy. And I was like, hey, this band is awesome because they paid me to say words that make them sound awesome.
100%.
But you also did the Red Dead.
Yes. I did. I was extremely fortunate to go to the Red Bull Red Dead Redemption 2 concert, and it was, look, for anyone who has not been to a performance of video game music, not all of them are equal, but I've been to the Red Dead, I've been to the Metal Gear Solid, which, whoa. I've been to like one other. Kay's been to a bunch of them.
Rex, you ain't heavy. You're my brother.
True. And yes, touching them directly on the Elden Ring is what the kids are saying. No. But like, if you have the opportunity to go to, and I've been to a Final Fantasy 14, like 2 Final Fantasy 14 concerts. There is a magic that you don't get in a normal concert. Partly because people who are there are fans and there's like this emotional investment. And part of it is the musicians are having a great time playing it. And like, you've probably seen a lot of live shows. You know the difference between someone who's having a good time doing what they're doing and someone who's like, they paid me $50 to play drums. Here I am.
Absolutely.
The conductor at the Stardew Valley Orchestra was so into it. He was having so much fun. He was living his best life. But I will say, look, the pandemic was terrible. We are still in it. You, Biden, we're still in it. It's not over. It took a lot from a lot of people, and I do not want to downplay any of how horrible it was and still is. But because of the pandemic, I did not get to go to the Final Fantasy VII Orchestra concert on my birthday. It was on my birthday. I got in for free just to write about it, and the pandemic took it from me.
That was all this time.
So now that we have rambled, tell us about being a music journalist.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we hate to see it. There were so many shows that I was going to do and that I was going to go to. And I mean, the pandemic fully, I wouldn't call it a career because I rarely got paid for it. But it fully killed my passion for, one of my passion. But it's what made me stop. That's why I'm a lapsed music journalist. I don't really write about it anymore. I guess the peak of it was like I got to go to some festivals.
I forgot to do a thing, so I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. You're going to hear a robot voice. Because someone forgot to do the thing every time. Okay, apologies. Continue.
No, it's all good. And as far as video game music is concerned, shout out to MagFest in Maryland, where I live, Music and Games Festival. If you've never been, it's a great time. Lots of video game music to be found there. It's a great place. But yeah, no, I mean, generally speaking, I mostly covered punk bands. I wrote a lot about punk music. I wrote a lot about ska music and the intersection thereof, just because that's what I tend to like and listen to. And those were the shows that I wanted to get into for free by emailing the venue and saying, hey, can I write about this and take pictures? And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was very cool, but like similar, I think, to what you were talking about, David. I decided pretty early on that my philosophy was that I wasn't going to write anything negative. I think one of the great things about the internet age is that we are past the need for like the tastemaker as a concept. And I just kind of decided very early on that nobody needed to hear about things that I didn't like when there's so much stuff out there that you can enjoy. And there's something out there for everybody. Somebody will enjoy it, whatever you make.
And like as sort of like cavalier and sarcastic as I sounded about it, I never wrote an article for a band that I did not think was good. And there are plenty of like, whether it's like album copy or website copy or articles or whatever that I wrote. And there were plenty of bands that I did not personally like that I wrote for. But no one, like if anyone was like, hey, this band that you wrote for, they suck, I'd be like, listen, you are incorrect, because they do these things and they have this technical skill, and it's not my kind of music. It's not what I am into, but they are very good at what they're doing. And yeah, there are plenty of people who are not. Ugh.
I did a lot of the same in video games. Like there were definitely some games. Oh, my captions are not behaving again. Why? Why for? Why for captions?
Yeah, why are your captions out and ours are fine?
I don't know. Actually, I might
Yeah.
know why. Which microphone do you think you're using? Manage. Sorry, y'all.
Oh.
Like, what is a live stream without, just...
what
No, you're
is a
using the right one.
cataclysm stream without
Okay, now it's
tech
behaving.
issues?
Now it's behaving. I'll take it. But yeah, when I worked in video... Now, look. There were some games that I did write. I went out of my way to not be, like, unkind, but you have to be honest at times. And there were some games where it was like, the transmissions, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in. Thank you for bringing your community. If you need to raid and run, because I know you've been streaming, no problem. Thank you so much. I hope you had a great stream. Hey, Emily. But there were certainly games where I'm like, I did not enjoy this game. However, I can see the things that were done well. I can see the idea behind it. I didn't have a season finale. I hope it went well. I didn't have look, y'all, my Twitch, my Twitch reaction in video game it's not that good. I like turn-based games. I really like turn-based games.
Hey,
a whole
trained
lot.
other skills.
Yeah. I mean, look, I grew up. That is my original still functioning NES. That is not even half my stack of games, of my NES games. That still work. I used to have it. And then I went, oh, I can play an RPG and not be mad at the game. So my Twitch skills rusted very quickly. Hey, Jason, welcome on in. So it is a unique skill. And this is what there's a really, and again, I work in video games, y'all, so this is where I get like really into this, where there's this fascinating thing that's happening with gamers right now, where they're like, you can't trust journalists because they get paid to write reviews, but I can trust the influencer who's getting paid to play this game.
Yep.
And so many of the articles that you read about video games, no one's making a goddamn dime off of that.
And those who do, like, y'all, I know people who write for or wrote for IGN. I know how much they make. There's a reason I'm not a games journalist full time.
It's not a lot.
If you took all
can't-
of their money and put it into a coffee can and shook it, it would rattle.
Come on, well, come on in. But yes, that is so. We're going to take some time to talk about Life in the Apocalypse because you do really cool stuff there, and I want to talk about it. But this is a really nice transition into tell me about this cool intersection that's coming up of punk music and TTRPGs.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Yeah, I have had the fortune and the privilege of spending the last 6 months or so working on a project that is about to come out very soon that I think some people have probably heard of if they've caught some other guests on the show, but it's called Voices in the Wood. It's a Tales Yet Told production, kind of a spin-off from Strangers in the Wood, one of their ongoing shows, and it's very interesting. It uses the, oh god, I'm going to botch this, the Void 1080 FM system, I think is what it's called. And it's all framed around this fictional radio broadcast that is being broadcast out of this the sort of magical forest world that their game's set in, and people can call in. So the players of the game are the callers, and I got to be one of those callers. But in addition, I was working behind the scenes as a co-producer, pretty much since the idea's inception. Kendo tweeted about it at some point, and I immediately was like, hey, I know a lot of bands if you need someone to talk to bands for you. And they got back to me pretty quickly. And then like a year went by or something, and credit to Kendo, they actually circled back when they were about to start the project and brought me on board. And that's been fantastic. So most of what I did behind the scenes for that, in addition to writing some press kit materials and things, I've done PR in the past for bands as an extension of that journalism thing. Was reach out to all of these different bands that I know who are in no way famous, in no way, like all of them are independent, just out here making music for love of the game, and basically said, hey, can we use some of your music? So when you hear Voices in the Wood, when it comes out, what you're going to hear is this fictional radio broadcast with real music from real bands interspersed between the calls from people that you almost certainly recognize from the TTRPG community, playing these characters as they call in. And that's going to start coming out very soon, I think.
That is ridiculous cool. And from when we were talking with Kendo as well, like this was a solo TTRPG. But
Yes.
Kendo went, I think I can make this a multi-person game, which I love. Like, most people know David and I homebrew quite a few things. I started homebrewing because I went, I don't want to play a game set in the Forgotten Realms because I don't know all the history and all the gods of the Forgotten Realms. I'll just build my own world. And if it's my own world, then I'm not doing it wrong, right? Right.
If it's my own world, then no one can actually me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and the format worked like perfectly for everything. It was such a pleasure being able to be one of the players in that game, and it's very interesting the threads that started to appear between people's calls. Like there are some common factors and some common themes that show up again and again, and I don't want to give anything away, but the final episode especially ties everything together really, really nicely. So I would encourage everybody to make sure you listen to everything very carefully.
Mer says they love solo RPGs. I've actually never played a solo RPG, which seems to be astounding to people. Apparently, I seem like a person who plays a lot of them. But And now that I'm not working at this exact moment, I really should take the time. I went out and bought Grandpa's Farm, which is basically a solo journaling Stardew Valley TTRPG. And I'm like,
Amazing.
I should actually finally play that. Like, I bought it. I should play it.
It's time.
And
But
it'll probably be good for me.
when will you have the time?
I am so glad that I am not working right now because I have so much backlog to get through.
That's a
And
lot.
planning a cross-country move. It's fine. We're fine. It's
Yo.
all fine. Nothing's on fire.
Kay and I work together on the Chaotic Wholesome Presents, obviously. Scheduling time when Kay is free is nigh on impossible. So if you feel like you can't get a hold of Kay, if you feel like you can't pin Kay down for a thing, know that people who are further up the ladder than you can't either. And y'all should be grateful that Kay takes time out of their busy day to do the talk show and to spend time with our lovely community, because Kay is super. Yes, but anyway,
It is my joy. So, we are super excited for that. But that is not the only TTRPG thing you do. In fact, you do something that's pretty well known on top of being badass.
before we move on with that, I do want to ask about like what the process is like was working with the bands, because like as we interview more people, as I get to know more people in the TTRP community, there's much more. I'm getting a bigger window into the musician/music crossover with TTRPG people, and so as someone who worked in music journalism and have known a bunch of people who have been in the bowels of music, the way this mixes into what we do now is really fascinating to me. So like, tell us about like your process. Like I know you wrote an email, but beyond that.
I did, yeah. For a lot of them, I wrote an email. It's actually, I'm glad you asked that question because I put together a note for our press kit for Voices in the Wood, which is going to be going out soon. And I talked about very specifically how it always surprised me coming from that world of like DIY music and like punk music that there wasn't more crossover with TTRPGs, because the parallels have really been so obvious to me since day one. Because at the end of the day, what it is it's a group of people coming together who may or may not know each other particularly well, kind of just scraping together whatever equipment they have access to, whatever resources they can get their hands on to make something together because they feel like they have something to say. And like that's what a DIY band is, and that is what a TTRPG actual play is in almost all of the cases. You see like casting announcements go out on Twitter, but you also see like Craigslist ads for searching for a bass player, things like that. At the end of the day, same thing.
Come on, we know it's a
essentially.
drummer.
Right. Well, yeah, you're not wrong. The music scene where I live, it is literally about 4 drummers who are in all of the bands,
Yes.
but they're very good at what they do. But yeah, so that crossover always seemed really, really obvious to me. The hardest part of reaching out to a lot of these bands was trying to explain what the podcast was. I don't think most of them cared, but like figuring out how I was going to phrase it in the email. And I don't remember exactly what I said. I think I said it was like a narrative podcast with kind of a spooky vibe where guests would be coming on and pretending to be callers and telling stories, and the music would be what split up the calls. And I probably didn't need to work that hard on it because universally all of the bands and the artists were like, oh yeah, absolutely, go for it. We're flattered. Some of them, the smaller bands, I think were just surprised to get an email at all. It didn't get back to me for like a couple of weeks, and I was like, well, I guess they don't want in. And then finally
They just
get
haven't
back to
checked your email.
yeah, they're like, I'm so sorry, we don't check this email very often, but yeah, feel free to use whatever. And I made it easier on them because I wanted to make sure that we were giving them something. Obviously, with actual plays, there's almost no money available for anybody. So I just made sure that I bought all of the songs on Bandcamp that we ended up using in the production, which is usually pay what you want. So I just kicked in like the suggested price. Yeah, that was how we got the music rather than asking them to like send it to us.
That's awesome. Yeah, we spend a lot of time on this show because, you know, a lot of people who hang out in our chat and follow this are either in actual plays or are producing or want to get into the scene. And it's like, just ask, right? Keep in mind, you are not entitled to anyone's time. But it is surprising how often, if you just ask, you will get a yes, or you will get a I cannot do this, but please contact me again. And universally, every person who said, please contact me again, has said yes to, if not the next one, then the one after. Like, I have really not had anyone just be like stringing us along forever. One person, but they kind of regretted. It became very obvious that they were like, I should have taken that opportunity.
There's always one. There's
And
always
also,
one.
like, recognize that the things that you ask of people are work, and that a lot of people, especially like the smaller, like the lower on the totem pole in the industry the more likely they are to be like, I need money for this. Because like Kay and I know an excellent, brilliant composer, pianist, and he hasn't been like, oh man, give me all these hundreds of dollars, but he just hasn't had time because he's always booked to the gills or in another country, which you find out after he gets back, but that's a whole different complaint. But like another very close friend of mine, or actually no, two of them are brilliant composers. One's a world-class drummer, one is a session guitarist. These are people who pay their rent playing their musical instruments. And I was like, hey, can you put together like a 1.5-minute jingle on a loop for, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so how much might that cost? And he's like, oh man, I'm gonna need $700 for that. And I'm like, I bet when I have $700, I'll come see you. And he's like, listen, I could give you like the friend discount and we could do, and I'm like, absolutely not. You are going to spend 20, 30, 40 hours on this. I'm going to give you what your market rate is because you are my friend and I care about you. Now, have I had $700 to give to him? No. Do I wish I had $700 to give to him? Yes, because I wouldn't give it to him. I would spend it on myself. But even if it's just like, you know, like $50 for like a resume review or whatever, like if somebody you care about, somebody you're friends with is like, this service of mine costs money, it's important. And I could do like a whole like 15-minute rant about why that's important and what that means and all, but I'm not going to. But if you ask your friends for things and it's something like they're willing to do it to work on for free, great. If they're like, hey, you need to slide me some dough, then give them the money. And if you don't have the money, be like, I will circle back when I have the money.
No, 100%.
Arguing, telling an artist or a musician or any to lower their prices, or I can't afford that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Insane behavior.
Don't do it. It's bad.
Absolutely not.
They will remember you forever.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's absolutely for sure. And that's like a really nice segue actually, because Live from the Apocalypse, the not-for-profit charity TTRPG channel that I co-founded like 3-4 years ago now, is not-for-profit, obviously. So we work on a model where we are just always platforming whatever our current charity beneficiary is. And then when we raise X amount of dollars, we vote and we pick a new one. And we just encourage people not to subscribe or interact with like Twitch currency in any way and instead donate. But every so often people will still do like a Prime sub. You can't turn that off on Twitch. It's always there if people look hard enough. So occasionally Twitch pays us out, and that money basically just goes into the bank for when we need to commission an artist. And that's pretty much the only time that money ever gets touched is if we're paying an artist for character art or paying for like music or something like that.
Yeah, and you know, CWP, we've been really fortunate in that we have gotten some. I cannot believe how many subscriptions we have right now, but like we don't make bank, y'all. We cover this year. I think this might be the first year where we actually break even and cover our costs, and that means we're gonna be able to pay artists for some of our upcoming stuff. But yeah, y'all, there's not a lot of money in TTRPGs. There's just really not. I have been paid upwards of $300 for a game. I have.
But that
once.
was the one time.
Once. So, you know.
If I had a nickel.
Thank you for the follow, Jaden. So tell me, how did the founding of Live from the Apocalypse come about? I feel like it might actually be similar to the founding of Chaotic Wholesome, but
Probably.
I want to hear.
Probably.
Was there bullying and
originally-
clubbing? Like strikes about the head with a sock full of nickels?
Relatively little, actually. But it
Then it's gonna be
was
different.
pandemic born. From the early days of the pandemic. We had actually a group of my friends IRL and I in Baltimore, where I live, had been planning to make a podcast. We were going to make two podcasts. Actually, we were going to make an Urban Shadows podcast and a Masks podcast. And we had everything set up, and we were planning to all meet on a particular day at my friend's basement to start recording the show. And that was the exact day that lockdown was declared in the state where I live. And we were all just sort of like, okay, well, what do we do now? Do we want to keep doing this? Do we want to try to move it online? And we did try to record it online with everybody running Audacity on their computers with their onboard mics, because nobody knew anything about working remote or anything about microphones or sound equipment at the time. And it was awful, and it will never see the light of day. But we did decide to keep playing those games and just not record them. And that Masks game actually was the precursor to the story of Academy H, which is the Masks actual play podcast that we make now. So Academy H is that game, that pandemic game, 15 years in the future, with a different cast and different characters. But after we started doing that, we kind of started taking a look at streaming, and we had done a little bit of it in the past. I had done a little bit of it in the past, and that's when we started to put the channel together. And the charity thing was mostly because we were always very avid Extra Life supporters. Every year we did Extra Life, and that was usually the only time any of us streamed or appeared on the internet outside of personal capacities. And honestly, from the get-go, we were just kind of like, if we want this to have longevity, we should just take all the money out of it. We should just remove any chance of us ever making a profit from this out of the mix, and that will hopefully secure our friendships and kind of bulletproof this idea. Because if we can do this on no budget, then we can do it for as long as we want to, as long as we're interested in it.
Yeah. And that having a contract is so important, even if that contract is where none of us are ever going to get paid.
Yep.
Not having contracts ruins friendships. Contracts don't ruin friendships. Not having contracts ruins friendships.
100%. 100% true. I've seen this. I can't tell you how many times I've seen things blow up or explode or fall apart in the TTRPG sphere, and just went to myself, man, I am so glad that we did not do that.
Yeah.
There are more implosions in the TTRPG space than stars imploding across the Milky Way at any given point in time. Like it is celestial in nature.
I have been part of 2 implosions that still managed to move forward.
That's the crazy thing about it too, right? Is like when something implodes, when you see it implode and then you see it circle back around and you're like, wait, didn't that? I thought, oh, okay.
Well, one of them imploded because the channel that was producing the game died.
Yep.
And so there was a whole discussion of like, what are we going to do? Are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? Are we going to make our own channel? Are we going to hop onto someone else's channel? How much creative control do we want? And like going back and forth. And the GM's like, well, I make TTRPGs anyway. I'm going to make this game into the system that I want, and then burnt himself out. And I was like, after months went by, I'm like, we're never going to play this game again. I've just got to let it go. I'm never going to play this game again. 8 months. We started back up last Wednesday. It's no longer streamed. It's now a home game. And then we had another one that we had to, one of the major tech people gone. And we had to figure out, do we want to keep playing? Can we keep playing? Yes, we can. okay, let's finish this story.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking broken toys and putting them back together again. Yeah. I mean, and that is, I think, so the way Chaotic Wholesome started was definitely not quite the same. But, you know, I got into, I was streaming before, community manager in video games. But I was streaming more TTRPGs during the pandemic. And after a point, I'm like, I'm not really, I'm getting to play. I'm applying to things and getting rejected from a lot, but I'm getting to play some. But I'm not really getting the stories that I want. And it's not really the tables and the performers that, it's not that they were bad, they just weren't like the kind of inspiring thing that gets me going. And David knows, like I am all about the healthy character bleed. There's a difference between bad character bleed and healthy character bleed. And I'm like, if I don't finish a game feeling emotionally exhausted because something horrible happened to my character, why am I playing this game?
And if after the game, there isn't regardless of levels of exhaustion, regardless of how late at night it is, if there isn't a solid 2-hour second wind directly after that, then it was a waste of time. K had no business there.
Absolutely. If I don't have to pace around my house for 50 minutes after the stream ends before I can start to think about going to sleep, what am I even doing here?
That like, oh my God, okay, so if this happens, like, you might say this, but this might happen. And if that's the case, I'd react this way. And if this, like, manic brain, y'all. Manic depression brain just goes, and that's good for me. That's a release because it lets me not be in my own head for a while. But I'm also aware of it to go like, I am really amped up. I shouldn't go reply to that intense work email right now.
Yeah.
Got to play the characters until they feel real. Like I've had some very kind people say some very nice things about the one-offs, like the quips that I have or the way my character reacts, and they're like, how are you so quick? I'm like, it's not quick. I've had this character talking nonstop in my head, and I've been talking back and forth and playing out these scenarios. So, you know, I have a relationship with this character, which is a really weird thing to say, but yeah.
Look,
so I was
it is not weird at all. How many people have anime waifu body pillows that stand up on their own and glow in a black light? Like, we have like very close associations with fictional characters. Like,
how many people freaked out when they realized that Homelander was exactly what Homelander was obviously was from the beginning. Yeah. But
I am not current on the boys, but whatever you say Homelander did, I believe you. Because I got to the end of season 1, and the whole like mother roleplay thing that I was just like, oh, anything goes here. Anything goes. There's nothing too monstrous.
As a blanket statement, I could just say, don't read the comics.
Oh, the comics are gnarly. I have a comics.
Garth Enniest.
I have a trade volume of the comic signed by Keith Urban or Carl Urban, and I'm like, I don't need to read this. It sits here and it's great because as gnarly as the scene with the Deep and Starlight was in the show, it was so much worse in the comic.
Oh, absolutely.
It was so much worse in the comic. I literally told my hairdresser this today, and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's worse. They toned it down.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wasn't getting that high that I wanted. And it was like, I know how to stream. David, do we want to run a TTRPG? Do we just want to, how hard can it be?
Oh, famous last words.
How hard can it be is always the famous last word, right? Yeah, if there's a comic book, it's worse. Correct. But yeah, like, and also along with my not getting my hits, you know, we were hearing from very important people whom I will not call out because I don't want to put this on anyone, but like very important people to me, to David, to the channel, who were like, I'm not being respected. You know, I am being tokenized. My concerns are not being heard. I am not being treated correctly. And it's like, well, we can fix that. Like, you know, I am white as they come. I will fuck up. but I will also learn and apologize and not do it again. So I think we can make this better. And look, our first run, our first overlays, they were inventive, but not great.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, who did I just say that? I just said this to someone the other day. Like, the first step towards being good at something is being really bad at something. And that sucks and is not fair. But also, the first step to being good at something is being not good at it first.
Yeah, and that's another part of the intersection between like the DIY aspect of this and the like high level production aspect of this, right? Is like you just start. You just start doing it. And like I didn't know how to use Photoshop or OBS or anything before we started this. I didn't know how to edit video, I didn't know how to edit podcasts or anything like that. And this is just stuff that I learned through trial and error, making shit on the internet. And it's cool what you find you're capable of when you sit down and you try it. And these are like skills that I've translated into like my day job and things now,
yeah,
which is extra cool. But like I think at the I end the my part of the Voices in the Wood. I think I end my part of the Voices in the Wood press release by saying all of these elements come together to form our singular ethos, which is keep shouting, someone will listen. And like that is the essence of this and of DIY music, and all of that is just figure out what you want to say, start doing it, keep shouting, someone's gonna fuck with it.
Yeah, storytelling in a nutshell.
And there's an element of be the change that you want to see in the world.
Absolutely.
Because whether it be TTRPGs or indie developers or writers, so many writers, I've had so many writers come to me and say, hey, I read this or I watched this show, I can do this better. And I go, okay, one, that's a bad reason to go do a thing. And two, so what? Like, go, like why are you telling me this? Go do it. And the reality is, and I remember I was at Comic-Con 2009, and the only panel that I went to that was one I wanted to go to, because I went with someone, I had to follow him around and haul some shit, is I went to J. Michael Straczynski. And I asked a question, and I don't remember what my question was. I don't remember what his answer was. But I do remember what someone else asked him, and him rolling his eyes. And he said, the question was, hey, like when you decide to work on your next property, do you essentially check out and see what's hot in the streets? Like, you know, is it like zombies or like gothic zombies or modern like what? And he rolled his eyes. He's like, what? Market research? Motherfucker, I get up out of bed and I'm like, oh man, it'd be cool to write about like vampires who fuck with their teeth. Like let's go. And then he goes out and writes it. And then everybody goes, oh my God, this is, and so like the lesson to take away from that is, if you are passionate enough about something to actually do the work, then one, go do it. Two, someone's going to be into it, because the volume of people who consume things vastly outweighs the volume of people who make things. And considering, like, if you're on any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Reels, Mastodon, Pterodactyl, like all of them, you see influencer after influencer, this person giving you advice about this person who's trying to touch your Elden Ring, like all of these different people trying, and out of all of those people, it still barely scratches the surface of people who are consuming all that content. Like if you want to make a thing, go make it, and do the best job you can, and people will vibe with it, and you'll get better at it over time.
I really wish that my camera was on like a good boom arm that I could move, because it's not, because I would just grab it and I would pull it in real close and I would just Blair Witch style at you all and be like, y'all, I worked as a moderator for DeviantArt for 17 years. There is an audience for it. I don't care how weird, original, niche you think it is, I guarantee you there is at least one person on the internet who's going to go, this is the best thing. I didn't know I needed this, and now it is my entire personality. Yes, I have seen some things. Yes.
Clearly, 100% true. When I was a public librarian, I always think about this when I think about, like, is somebody going to like this idea? Is it going to appeal to somebody? There was this guy who'd come into the library, and he was this older man, and he had like a long kind of ponytail and a very like thick, like Sam Elliott mustache. And he dressed like he was living on a farm, which I think he was. I think he was a farmer. And he would come in and he'd spoken like this real, like, rough, deep voice. And he would come in and he would check out werewolf romance novels. That was what he loved. He loved reading werewolf romance novels. And then he was really into Outlander, and he brought like a Scottish dirk into the library, and we had to ask him not to bring weapons into the library after that. But yeah, he just loved werewolf romance novels. And like, if you are passionate about it, people are going to love it. People are going to like it, whatever it is that you put out there into the world. Someone is going to like it, and it's probably not going to be who you expect.
That we stand that man. That is the best.
We
like,
sure
do not kill the part of you that is cringe. Kill the part of you that cringes.
Yep.
Yeah. Slightly adjacent story. My mother does not get fandom. She does not understand my job. She does not understand my hobbies. She does not understand. And until, like, she especially did not understand fantasy. Now, my mother got big time into Game of Thrones. Not until season 2 when the dragons came out. She didn't care about season 1. The dragons hatched, and she's like, I'm all about the dragons. And I'm like, you made fun of me for liking dragons and books about dragons. So I don't know. Okay, I am so happy. But my mom and I, like, her statement was, like, I raised you, but you lived in another world, right? Like, she and I we have a good relationship, right? But in that, and it was just after, it was not Comic-Con 2009, but it was after a Comic-Con. It was just after a Comic-Con. And she was like, oh, when I was in college, I read this book series and they're making a show out of it. And I'm like, kind of excited that I might get to, like, it might be good. You've probably not heard of it. It's called Outlander. I'm like, Mom, I was just at Comic-Con. I could have gotten you all the Outlander swag. I had all the Outlander dudes in kilts, like, surrounding me playing bagpipes at me, Mom. You gotta tell me this stuff.
And yeah, and I mean, that's the show that it was specifically the show that he was really into, but that's when he brought the dirk in. It was to talk to one of the librarians that he knew also liked Outlander. He really wanted to show her the Scottish dirk that he owned.
Right. It's like, please let me show you my little knife.
Please, right?
Do you want to touch?
Important.
It was a real big knife. And the rest of us, you can imagine all the librarians like clustered in the back watching the security camera footage, which was very alarming, of this man just walking up to the desk, having a conversation, reaching behind his back, pulling out this giant knife.
I'm going to slightly tangent this because of the conversation going on in chat, which is David and Candace were both at San Diego Comic-Con 2009. Now, some deep lore is that David and I met before we met because we discovered after we had become friends that we had both been to Labyrinth Ball, and David had actually stepped on my dress at Labyrinth Ball. He felt terrible. I didn't even. I'm like, I don't know, everyone stepped on the dress was too long. Everyone was stepping on it. It's fine. It's not a big deal. David beat himself up about it. So if Candace and David also met before they met, that one's on you, David. My life is very strange, and there's all sorts of serendipitous stuff that happens, but if that happens, that's on you.
And it's funny because, like, I thought about this, like, maybe last week or, like, the week before, about how, like, I seem to have, like, a story for like, every occasion. And I'm not one of those people who, like, just, like, I've just met a bunch of weirdos over the course of my life. Like, I've had... That's the story. That's the story I was going to tell Ribbonanza. Ha! I remember.
Serendipity. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we broke David. I'm so happy.
And it's funny because it is serendipity. Because the whole reason the duck thing started is because not a giant, but a big duck, a big rubber ducky. I'm in a mall, so you can tell this was a long time ago. I'm with a friend of mine who was notoriously stingy and expected me to pay for everything. We walk by, I think, a Bath and Body Works. And amongst all the other things, they had, like, just as part of the display, like these big... And I was like, I would never buy anything out of this store, but I want that. And she's like, well, you could go and ask. And I'd be like, that. And I was like, that means talking to someone, and I'm not going to do that. And talking to someone at their job, making them do their job at work, that's cruel and unusual punishment. I refuse. I won't let capitalism win. So she goes over and she's like, yo, how much for the duck? And the poor woman behind the counter is like, you mean the display thing? How much for... So she had to go in the back, talk to her manager. Manager had to call someone above the manager, who then had to look on a computer and was like, okay, here's a special code where you can check out this thing and we'll let it slide for $15. I had $13 in my pocket. And I remember I had $13 in my pocket. I was like, oh, well, it's not meant to be. And she said, she looked me in the eyes and she's like, you motherfucker, you shut up. And she bought that rubber ducky for me. And ever since then, people decided I had a thing for rubber duckies. And so I've amassed this, and like, I haven't gotten the bookshelf yet. It takes money and time and effort, and David has not had any of those things. But I'm going to have a display not nearly as cool as Kay's, but I'm going to have stuff behind me, and included will be the army of duckies. And lots of people have rubber duck collections. Other streamers have rubber duck collections. The pride of my rubber duck collection is that everybody impressed this upon me, and it became who I am. And every single piece of ducky memorabilia, keychains, I've got a loofah, I've got like a ice
You've
cube.
got the
things.
chick from Frozen.
Yeah, I got. Oh, and that's not even counting like the actual duckies. The actual duckies I have. The actual duckies I have are amazing, and I love them to death. And every single one of them is like, I saw this, and this is for David, and so I bought it and brought it to David. And more than anything, it is a big sign of my friends and how much I am loved and how much I am thought of, because I have a fucking army of rubber duckies, and they are awesome. And so like all of these things have happened, whether it is possibly meeting Candace, meeting Kay, up to being full rubber ducky, that has all come from that one serendipitous moment when someone went, you need this. You don't even know why you need this. Shut up and take it. And it has defined my life since. And I'm very happy about that.
Speaking about shut up and take it, which is the most interesting segue I'm going to have, getting money for charity. Shut up, charity. Take the money. Actually, I moderated a panel 2 years ago at PAX Unplugged called "How to," in all caps, "How to Take People's Money and Give It to Charity." Which,
That's
to this
the trick,
day,
right?
people chase me down and they're like, "That's the best panel title I've ever heard." I'm like, how do you think we got it? You got to have fun titles to get into PAX.
Right. You had them in the first half.
Yes. Talk to us about all the charity work that you've done. Talk to us about how, what are you most proud of? What was the most frustrating? And tell us about that world.
Yeah. It's been a while since we totaled it up. Normally we do. I guess it hasn't come around again. And this year's been hell for everybody, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But we keep a running total of the amount of money that we've raised since we started. I think last count, we were over $15,000 raised for charity in the 3 years or so that we have existed. We're probably way past that now. I just haven't updated that recently. But the model that we settled on very early on was that when you do these charity events, like a lot of channels, a lot of streamers will do charity weekends where you pick a beneficiary, we'll say, an organization, whatever, that you're going to raise money for, and that's the focus of that stream or that weekend or whatever it is you're doing. And you can raise a lot more money a lot faster that way, because it is a special event. You're asking for this thing, you're asking people to pitch in. We were trying to think of a way to make it more sustainable in the long term. And that's when we settled on the idea of, hey, like, don't give us money. If you like what we're doing, just like a Twitch subscription costs like $6. Just give $6 to the charity, give $1 to the charity, whatever you can spare. There is no expectation, or don't give anything. And that's fine too. But we wanted it to be more of an ongoing thing, which is why we settled on the model of picking the charity beneficiary, raising X amount of dollars for them, and then finding a new organization to benefit. Just so that people don't experience, like the audience doesn't experience that burnout of constantly being hit up for money. And that model, while it's really effective, that model of like, here's the weekend charity stream, is super effective, but it's not sustainable in the long term. It's really effective in the short term, but the assumption that comes with it is people are going to give you a lot of money because it is a special thing. And if that's all you do, people are going to feel very burned out in the long run. So
that's definitely something David and I have discussed of like, we're like, we want to do more charity games, but also we can't be every 2 weeks. Okay, now give us $10 again.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, instead it's like, give what you want when you can. And we're all working towards this higher goal, however long it takes for us to get there. And yeah, that's been really effective and really rewarding. We've raised money for the First Nations Development Institute. We've raised money for Project Surfrider. The Surfrider Foundation, which is an ocean conservation group, Planned Parenthood, Communities Against Police Brutality. Just to knit, like there's so many that I can't even keep them straight. And currently we're raising money for Doctors Without Borders and the medical and humanitarian aid in Palestine.
Yeah, I do want to take just a minute because, again, I have seen Rainbow Railroad. Yeah. I have seen so many channels crash and burn for various reasons. I think we all have. And some of it is drama implosion because there is no drama in the TTRPG community. But so many, and in fact, I taught, hey, Dorian Black, welcome on in.
Thank you.
You said Bottoms Without Borders.
Get out.
Hey, Antalamia, welcome on in. I've been part of a channel that crashed and burned because it was not sustainable. And they were like, well, the only way we can do this is to have the complete and full Photoshop suite. And it's like, that's gonna really drain your pocketbooks, right? Or it's like, oh, we have to turn out this stuff. So if you look at what David and I do, you know, we talked about this when we went on the incredible DC Lasser's Tech Friday. Is like, how can you do this on a budget, right? Like, yes, you can spring for the complete and total Photoshop, After Effects, Stream Elements, all, like those are great, but we use DaVinci Resolve. And we used it for free for many years until we had enough to be able to pay for the studio version, which is a one-time fee. And everything we needed to do, we could do in the free. We just wanted the extra little boost that comes when you're rendering 4 hours of video. You can use Photopea. I would say use Canva, but Canva, don't use it if you don't have to. If you're already invested, you know, but if you can do... Like, there's a lot of really great options out there. And you also have to, Affinity Suite is free for a 6-month trial. That's good too. I have a paid version of Affinity on some computer somewhere, and I don't know how to transfer it to a current one, but I might need to soon.
A fun fact about DaVinci Resolve, also just as a quick sidebar, is that when I first started trying to use it, if you had the free version, you couldn't use your GPU in the rendering process. It would only give you that option in the paid version, and that is not the case anymore. Now in the free version, you can use your GPU for rendering.
That's super good to know.
Yeah.
I've done what I can with what Canva gave me. Look, that's fair. We all got it. Look, we are all in late stage capitalism. Do what you have to do. But if and when you can divest and go to better thing, do that. When and if you're able to. And you also have to keep in mind that we use Stream Elements, and we're like, Stream Elements is great. I've worked with Streamlabs, and I was like, I don't want to work with them. I don't like them. Even before all the stuff came out, I was like, I've worked with you professionally. Not a fan. Not going to use them. And I was like, okay, Stream Elements, great. And then it's like, well, now we've got to divest from stream elements. What options do so you might have the perfect option, and it might not be your perfect option for forever. So, you have to stay a little bit flexible because, again, things jump in prices. But I wanted to just talk about how important it is to pay attention and focus, to be aware of sustainability, be it money, be it time and effort, because burnout is a huge thing. And if you don't know how to do things on the cheap, you will not. This is an expensive hobby. Like, yes, it's just people sitting around telling stories, and dice should be your biggest investment, but they're not. Even with all I've spent on dice, it's still not my biggest investment. I don't have a problem. These are just choices. I can quit whenever I want. I didn't just buy 4 more D20s. I didn't just do that. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned that how good it is that you on multiple levels went, how do we make this sustainable, and kept to it. Because if you're like, I have to run a game every single week, me alone, I'm the only GM, and also I have to do it, like, it's not sustainable. It might be if you don't have a job, but even that can really burn you out. Because how many, who has never known a GM who burnt themselves out?
Yeah, it's 100%, and I mean, like, that's a good question to ask, because, like, you do a lot, you wear a lot of hats. So who helps you keep the wheel turning?
Yeah, we actually, kind of along the same lines, sustainability is really important to talk about, in terms of, like, how can we afford to keep doing this? What is the long-term ramification of us doing this? How do we make this sustainable? Technically speaking, I think it's just as important, and I've always said this, and different people have different philosophies, but I think it's very important to just always, from the get-go, have it in the back of your mind that it's fine to walk away. It's fine to take a break. But the other guiding principle, I guess, that we founded Live from the Apocalypse on is that when this stops being fun, we will stop doing this. And it hasn't stopped being fun yet, but, like, we all decided very early on, we are good to walk away from this. None of us are trying to turn this into a career. None of us are trying to make this into something more than it is. If it stops being fun, if it becomes too much, we're done. And because of that, there have been a couple of times where we've gotten really close to saying, like, are we still having fun with this? And eventually the answer ended up being yes, but people will step away. People will take breaks. I've done that. A lot of, all of us have. I think we have an admin team. We say organizer, but who do all of the, like, behind the scenes stuff for the channel. And I think currently we have 3 active out of 6, just because of people going on hiatuses, just because of people needing to take mental health breaks. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, David, that is part of it is figuring out how you can split things up amongst a group like that. Who's willing to really devote themselves to this, and who's willing to help out, and how can people help out? So, like, when I was building our overlay setup, our OBS setup, I specifically designed it in a way that would be easy to export and import in OBS, so that it's as easy as possible to teach other people how to stream. And so we run, I think, 6 ongoing campaigns on the channel currently, and some other, like,
so much.
It's a lot. They're on alternating weeks. So normally we have, like, I think we're live 3 or 4 nights a week at our when we're at full capacity. But that's, like, I'm streaming and running maybe two or 3 of those games currently, and the rest are different GMs, different players in the games, because we made that setup as lightweight as possible and as importable as possible.
And if you're interested in teaching other people how to stream, or, like, needing, like David and I, needing to share things, if you don't have the OBS source copy plugin, it will change your life. Google it. It's free. It's great. So just do it. It's so much better. We set up David's OBS. I mean, it took a long time, but it took so much less time because he didn't have to build every scene individually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
It's such a game changer. I was so mad when I found out that existed. Too late.
Oh no.
Don't worry. When you strip it all down and build it up from scratch again, you'll have that there available for you.
Oh, I use it all the time now. But when I was first putting our stuff together to be like, look, I'll export this, you import it. Now you can stream. I didn't know that existed. So I was just rebuilding everything from scratch each time.
Oh.
And
I mean,
it's such a game changer.
It's fairly new, so
Yeah.
it might not have been out. If that's
That's
any
a very good
comfort,
point.
like it might not have been out.
Yeah.
And I made the joke earlier about how like K is unavailable because they're just so incredibly busy. But a big part of why K is so busy is because of all the things that are required to make things go. Like we're very fortunate because we have a lot of people who are eager to contribute to the channel, who support our projects with their time and their expertise. We've had people come in and play test things and help us in that way. We've had people work on documents and forms and things that we've worked on that have contributed a great deal to making them successful. Dorian Black, who's in chat, is Q and ran Body and Soul in February and March.
So good.
Candace, who's also in chat, organized all of the Magnificent Pride games.
And Jason's incredible overlays.
The Crit Award nominated Jason did all the work for the overlays, and like Kay mentioned earlier, like starting out the whole look of things needed work, and Kay worked tirelessly on them. But then later having an expert step in and not only like build things for us, but also someone we can go and talk to and ask questions of and get an expert opinion of, has now put us on a pedestal where I, who does not do any overlay design at all, get to send screenshots to Kay and be like, you see how ugly, how hideous this overlay is? Look at these amateurs, these rank amateurs. Now we sit on a pedestal high above where our shit looks great. Where again, David had no part in it. But
100%.
Good. Jason deserves to blush.
Yeah, Jason should blush
all
more.
of the. We have so many Crit Award nominated people on this chat and also in our chat. Like it's a.
and
Again,
like
we have people come on the show and people hang out in our Discord and share their knowledge. There is we have a tech problems thing, and just today, like the truly incredible Logomancy and gods, my brain right now. Come on, brain. I had an interview earlier today, y'all. So I had an interview like almost immediately before this call. So my brain is just ramshackle, Logomancy, walking people through audio issues, and like we finished when he was on last week, we finished our call, and he's like, David, here's how you can prove your audio free right now. Go do this one thing. There is so much. A towel fixed David's audio. There is, and this is part of the reason, like when you were talking about that, and I'm like, let's shout out how important it is to make it sustainable. Let's shout out the source copy, because if you don't know these things, you have to learn them, and you have to learn them the hard way. So if I can tell you a shortcut, maybe, as someone said, you're not getting the hard-earned knowledge doing it the long way, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just enjoy the ride sometimes.
We have a similar channel on the Live from the Apocalypse Discord, which I think it's called Sick Rig Bro. And it's basically the same thing. It's like tech advice and things like that, but it is my personal mission on this earth to show everyone and convince everybody out there to stop using the Blue Yeti.
Yes.
Stop using a Blue Yeti microphone.
Yes.
And so every time there's like a better microphone for cheaper, of which there are many, I'll make sure that I post it there. I'll post it like on Twitter or wherever I can. And just like, please, I have spent years learning about this. Please.
Yes.
Yo, Kay and I were invited on to DC Lasser's Tech Friday, which was really cool, really awesome, very nice of him. And I was like, listen, Blue Yeti, you don't have to spend $300 on a microphone. You really don't. And if you're gonna spend $300 on a microphone, get
this
a better microphone.
Get this one.
No,
This mic
absolutely.
is so
It's
good for
criminal.
TTRPG. It's not good for music. If you're a musician, don't get this one.
Right.
It's not going to do anything good for it. But I got all the musical talent of this guy, right?
Yeah.
He might sing me the song of his people, but it's not melodic. Same here. Same here.
Honestly, and like hot take maybe. I mean, if you're making music, it's a different thing. Don't get a condenser microphone at all. Get a dynamic microphone.
Mhm.
It's better. It has to be closer to your face, but that's good.
Yep. And in fact, Logomancy sent me this. I got this purple pop guard, which this one has an internal pop guard, but he's like, this one is excellent. It will also help filter out background noise, and it comes in purple. And I'm like, well, now we're sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sold.
It's what we need. He showed up a little bit earlier, but yeah, no. We actually have 2 cats. The one
Yeah.
is not currently being on stream, but there is a
He's
second.
sleeping. I'll see if he'll come over. Hey,
But yes, we have been so fortunate that people have helped us out in a number of ways, including coming on this show and sharing their knowledge, sharing their experiences, and just helping us spread the good word about things.
I mean, yeah, that's like the biggest part. I remember I think the first year that we existed, we did like a virtual convention to celebrate like the first year anniversary. And
Aw.
one of the panels that I put together was about stream tech, how to set up a stream, mostly using Video Ninja. Mostly, it was basically a Video Ninja tutorial at the time, which was relatively new. But yeah, learning like making the podcast and editing that and learning how to use Reaper and all of that stuff really kind of I joke sometimes. I have joked that me and the other person who founded Live from the Apocalypse, his name is Andy, we would joke that Andy's hobby was running TTRPGs and my hobby was building stream assets. Because at a certain point that becomes its own passion and its own art form as well. It's very cool to see it being honored in awards now.
Yes. And there are that is one of being a streamer is hard. And I don't think most people understand how much goes into building a streaming channel, even if you're just solo, because you are doing the job of multiples of people. You are the performer, you are the director, you are the producer, you are the lighting and sound person. You have to do the marketing, you have to do brand assets, you have to do social media, you have to do all of it. You are doing a ton of jobs, and those are all different hats, and you're going to be at different levels of skills of them. And then when you add in TTRPGs, you've also got to wrangle 3 to 6 other people. You've got scheduling alone. We all know that scheduling is the first boss of TTRPGs. And then, and I said this on DC's channel, and I hate it, you have to make short form content if you want your stuff to get seen. And I hate short form content. I hate it. I watch the ones that David sends me, and other than that, I don't open TikTok unless I'm posting. Because even though I know I have amazing friends who make amazing short form content, my brain doesn't like short form content. My brain is like, I would rather watch a 3-hour actual play. I'm a dinosaur in this world. But you have to do it.
You do.
And it becomes skill sets that, again, if you are fortunate enough, and that's the other challenge. This is why it's so dangerous when friends groups explode. Because if you're like, well, I am hyper-focusing on jobs A and B, and you are hyper-focusing on jobs Q and Z, and then your friend is no longer part of it, suddenly you've got all of those jobs. And you may not be good at them.
That's absolutely true. And I mean, that's the short form content thing. It took forever to finally accept that was the thing that had to happen. I do use Canva for that. It's easier.
Oh.
It's easier to make it in Canva, in my
I
experience.
throw it together very quickly and cleanly in DaVinci Resolve.
Yep.
And yeah, I also this is from, I've finished them. They are not posted yet because time is a thing. But these are the settings to set up for the Juneteenth game that we did. So after I cut everything down to clips, and then I put, okay, where do these need to be to get everyone on screen? And then every time I opened the new one, I just duplicated 3 times and then moved 3 to this, so I could like speed run it a little bit. You find shortcuts. But yes, it is. It is a thing. I have a TikTok. It's called a clock. David is the undisputed master of TikTok in our relationship.
Only by virtue of bedrock. Like, look, the number of TikToks I've seen where they're like,
so he used to be that size.
I know. I finally convinced him to come over. He's sleepy.
He's so small.
The number of TikToks I've come across where they're like, oh, and I bet you're watching this on the toilet in the bathroom. I'm just like, ha ha ha, joke's on you. I don't TikTok in the bathroom. I only TikTok in bed. But yeah, and also like one thing that we're not gonna like dive into, but I find very curious is the conversion from one short form media to another to any other platform is nigh on impossible. Like I've heard multiple creators go, hey, I'm big on TikTok and I have 4 people following me on YouTube. Or, you know, I'm big on TikTok and I fire up a Twitch stream and I got 12 people in chat. I got 1.5 million views on a video and 12 people in Twitch chat. What the hell is this about? And I find that very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the wild thing about it, right? Is just how varied it is and how little it translates from one platform to another platform.
Yeah. It's wild. We will release the same clip on YouTube Shorts and TikTok, and it will go off on one platform and not on the other. It's literally the same content launched at the same time.
Yep.
The algorithm. Yep. Look,
and it's not all one platform, and it's not all the other. It's just very like hit and miss.
When I work, my job, a big part of my job, is figure out the algorithm, make it my bench, and sit on it, and I can't explain it half the time. I'm like,
We all live in service to the algorithm.
If you all would ever like to see a community manager hold a smile, or a social media manager hold a smile that scream internally, if you want to see the 7th circle of hell inside of someone's eyes, ask them, how do I make this go viral?
Oh, that's mean.
I've been asked that question professionally more than once.
I wanna ask what white guy asked you that question, but I know the answer to that, and I probably can guess what color suit he was wearing at the time.
But yes, what else would we like to make sure we focus on with you, Will? What have we not covered?
I have a question. Because you are a Crit Award nominated GM, tell us about your game mastering and what goes into it, and give us a top 3 as a master GM, as an MGM, as a Metro Goldwyn Mayor.
He has Gilmore's bow too. It's this one right here.
Beautiful.
But as a master GM, to all the budding, hopeful master GMs, give us the pearls of wisdom.
Well, first of all, I don't know how that happened.
Because people watched you and recognized your talent.
I know. It's insane to me. It still does not feel even remotely real when I got that message. Completely blew my mind. But it was a huge honor. As far as my GMing is concerned, I've found, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but at least for me, and I have ADHD. But I have found that it's kind of hard when you really get into storytelling, to GMing. It's kind of hard to be a player at a certain point. For me, at least, my brain just vibes very well with storytelling and GMing, because it's one of the only times in my day-to-day life where I always have to be on, where I can't like have a something playing on a screen or like listening to music or like getting caught in my phone. I'm like fully invested in the thing that I'm doing. And it's one of the only times that my brain is kind of functioning, focusing like 100% on one thing. And I have been doing this long enough now that it's kind of a fun to challenge myself. So I have never been big on prep for sessions, and these days I don't do it at all before I run a session, and I see what happens. And again, some of that is just the benefit of existing in a low stakes environment like Live from the Apocalypse most of the time, where it's like we're just gonna throw some stuff at the wall and see what happens.
Also, a lot of that comes from just experience.
Yeah.
But once it's difficult to do until you've done it a lot.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
I cannot GM without prep. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm it's weird to say, like it's tooting my own horn, but like I'm pretty good at storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta prep.
I get it.
And y'all, I'd argue that Kay is excellent at just pulling shit together, except Kay would not be comfortable doing so. And there's a big difference.
There's a difference.
And also I'd like to highlight to everyone, do things with intention, because there are plenty of people out in the world, and you have met them, who've been doing a thing for a long time and are bad at it. Like anybody who's had a job where someone's been there like 30 years, not because they are the grand poobah expert, because there are those people too, but because they rose as high as they could get, which wasn't very far, and then stayed there for 30 years. Like these are the same people who've worked the same job, and computers have been in offices since like 1994, and they don't know how to open a PDF. So as you do things with intention, do things with reflection. Like Kay will be the first to tell you to watch your own performances.
It's torture, but do it.
Absolutely.
See how you're doing, reflect on things. And it's funny that you bring up like it fully engages your brain, because as someone who also GMs, like in life, you've got plate spinning, like you're thinking about like the dishes, and then like when the rent is due, and oh my god, what am I gonna eat tomorrow? And each of those is like for those of us who are old, who saw variety shows that were filmed in the 70s, one of the things they did was they got like a stick and they put a plate on top and they spun the plate, and then they would do another one, and they'd get like 7 or 8 plates going at the same time.
Look at that, an idiom that doesn't have a racist connotation, unlike cakewalk.
That's yeah, I will reflect on that later. But yeah, like as someone who like always has a screen that is playing something, the one time that my maximum plate capacity is engaged is like either like certain types of games do it, and definitely GMing does it, because I have to keep track of all these different storylines and all these different characters and stuff that people told me and stuff that happened in the past and stuff that I'm planning in the future and what everybody has on them. For anyone who's ever done the mental labor of what's in the pantry and what's in the fridge when you go to the grocery store, and then somebody looks at you and goes, "Hey, do we need milk?" And it's like, motherfucker, we live in the same house. We drink out of the same cartons. Why are you asking me? Why do you not know? All of that is GMing, but less fun.
Absolutely.
So, I want to lean into, I'm going to talk about what you just said, Hex, but in a moment, because the other thing that I want to say is, it is one of my favorite things to do, but it is also, there is nothing more terrifying than GMing for a forever GM. Because they're like, I have to control the entire world. What do you mean I just get to do this one character? Oh, I have long joked that I'm like, I wanted, not because I'm like arrogant enough to think I could do a job, but I was like, I want a forever GM. I want to run a game for some of the best forever GM. I want Matt Mercer. I want Brennan Lee Mulligan. I want a Bria. Like, I want these forever GMs, and I want to see how quickly they can destroy everything I had planned, each in their own way, because a forever GM is the most terrifying character ever.
Fair.
They are playing 6D chess while I'm just trying to run this game. And they will set up something, and we'll get to the end, and I'm like, I just got it. The session ended an hour ago, and I just figured out what you did. I see it now. I'm so happy. So happy. Yes, they will chew up the entire landscape in moments. They're like, oh, I don't have to do everything. I am now lightning in a bottle. And I'm aimed at you.
But have you considered that they might just be dissociating?
Also,
there's that.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens to me. And then I'm like, I'm sorry, what am I in the scene? Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, what I always come back to, and this is part of that like fully engaged moment, and also part of that whole like running a game for a forever DM thing, is that this is not a solo show. This is not a solo act. No part of this is a solo act. So getting nominated for something like Best Game Master for the Crit Awards is incredibly flattering. But like that nomination doesn't just belong to me, because this is not just an activity that I do by myself. Part of being a good storyteller is knowing when to let go. And the not prepping thing helps me with that personally, because if I prep things, I get locked into it. And it's harder for me to adjust on the fly. Whereas if I don't have anything prepped, it is much easier for me to roll with the punches of whatever's happening currently. And I can look at the problem that's directly in front of me that a player just put there and say, all right, what do I think would happen logically from this point on? And it's about that. It's about like trusting the group that you're playing with. I think telling a really amazing story, part of that has to come from investing the time to get to know each other and to match each other's energies and understand where it is that you all intersect with each other, and using that as a jumping off point for whatever comes after that in the story. And I feel like I had more stuff to say, but again, ADHD, it's all gone now.
I'm really glad that you phrased it the way you did, is because one of the things Kay and I always talk about is TTRPGs are collaborative storytelling. And there's an old joke about a Reddit post where a guy was like, listen, I'm a GM, but my players aren't doing the things that I need them to be doing. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they went left when they should have gone right. And they're like, well, and then the guy asked, is there a tabletop game where I can be the GM and the players? And somebody responded with, it's called writing a book, my guy.
Go write your book.
But like your players are so important. Like keyboard commands are excellent. And I swear there's a point to this. I as an editor, I learned a bunch of keyboard commands for Microsoft Word many moons ago, and for PCs in general. And the one I found that I use most when GMing is Control Enter. And that is, it makes an entire new page. And the reason I need to make an entire new page is because I will set my players off on some sort of fucking quest. And then somebody will look at somebody and go, oh, how are we gonna get the venom from the spider? I don't know, ask them. This is a mistake, because they're gonna go ask everybody. Or I'm going to look Kay in the eyes and be like, why are you in the kitchen with the boiling pasta? And then like 10 minutes later, it's I have to like build this whole scene about how this particular area is consecrated ground because a paladin of the flying spaghetti monster cast pasta water everywhere and prayed, and then had to roll a dice to see if it stuck or not. And there are all these things, like, you know, I've talked time and time again about like different, I've had to build entire new mechanics. And so like anybody who watches our Christmas charity games, always know that there's some sort of custom mechanic that we build for each and every game. There's always like some custom thing that we got to build out. And for other games that we've run and games that we're planning, we also build custom things for D&D. Like Kay says, like if we're home brewing, we can't get it wrong. But also we need the system to do certain new things because my players have dropped something on me that I did not foresee, that I do not understand, and that I cannot think my way out of. And so you end up talking like a horse when you didn't want to, like when you really didn't want to. But part of what makes GMing engaging is all the unexpected shit that your players throw at you. And part of what makes the experience great, both for like you as a GM and them as players, and for people watching, is the surprise and then the yes and then the, okay, well, this encounter's blown, I have to throw it away and then build something new. Or I have to make entire new pages of blank space that I have to now fill in because what was supposed to be a simple go from point A to point B to point C, someone was like, that looks like a B, but B is not where we're going. Have you tried O? We're headed to O. And I'm like, man, I only planned up to H. Now I have to throw away preparation H, which is a fucking terrible, what's that Mike Myers series joke that I can't remember the name of? Is the one with it doesn't matter. Point is, like, it is the collaboration, and I think we're fortunate that we know a lot of people who are very good at this. But in talking with people at like game places and talking to people online, too many GMs forget that like your players have an important central role in shaping the story. And unless you engage with that, and unless you learn how to deal with that, you're not going to be a very good GM.
Yeah. And
I think, oh, sorry, Kay.
I was just to say, one of the best things a GM can learn is when to shut up. Shut up and let the players talk it out, figure it out. Like I had a series that everyone decided we don't want to play this anymore because the GM wouldn't allow us to work through all the stuff that they just threw at us. And it's like, well, we're not. Going a little bit back, I like it when a GM hurts me. I am of the hurt me daddy school of TTRPGs. I have handed David like character backstories where David's been like, okay, you take that out. You take that line out. That I'm like, no. I want it in there and I want it used against me. By GM of the horror game, I was like, here's the background. Fuck me up, fam. And it's like, there is a thrill of doing that, of saying that, knowing the GM will actually fuck you up with it, right?
Okay, we should play a game together.
Tell me when and where. But the other really important thing that is kind of the opposite side of it, and I'll let you say your thing, but like it gets forgotten a lot, clearly not by you, but the really important thing that everyone needs to remember is that the GM is a player too. And if the GM isn't having fun, it's not a good game. Now, go.
Oh gosh. Oh,
no.
I was going to say, no, it's fine. I was going to say, I think one of the most beautiful things about this hobby, I think one of the most beautiful things you can do in this hobby is just kind of surrender to the chaos of someone else's mind and explore that, like sit in that moment. Like it's easy to feel like you are losing the plot or losing control. There's this illusion of control that I think we tend to cultivate in this space when we talk about it, and in the way that some of the books present it, and the way that a lot of people have learned to play these games. There's this illusion that you have to have control, and there's something really beautiful about just surrendering that control and just sitting in that space that someone else has placed before you with them to explore that. And I've experienced it from both sides, right? I've experienced that and how freeing and how nice that is as a player, and I've also experienced it where I've asked. Not verbally, but like I've put something before a storyteller and said like, I think it'd be really fun. I would like to sit in this for a while. And then they just kind of like breeze past it or move on because they aren't comfortable with like diverting from whatever is going on. And I think that illusion of control is the best thing you can do in these games is just throw it out the window.
Yeah.
As far as like writing a book is concerned, David, which you talked about, one thing that we haven't talked about is I have a creative writing degree. I went to college for writing, and I did fiction for a lot of it. I ended up with a concentration in poetry, but which is super useful in my life. Trust me, it definitely.
English
Especially if
major,
you write music.
so,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, making a lot of poetry money. Don't worry about it. But I've talked about this over the past couple of years, doing this and making content. One of the things that I came to realize is that when I was a kid, I loved telling stories and I was good at it. And when I would write these stories down and everybody said, "Oh, you're really good at this." And in our society, which is capitalistic in nature, when you are good at something, you are told you should do this professionally, which means you should be a writer. If you are good at telling stories, if that is something you enjoy, you should grow up. You should be a writer. And the thing that I have come to accept about myself is that I don't enjoy writing fiction, but I love telling stories and I love exploring that medium. And this is what lets me do that, because the part of it that's really interesting is taking the idea from my brain and putting and giving it to other people and seeing what they do with it, and then continuing to evolve that idea with their influence. I like collaboratively telling stories. I don't like writing in a room by myself.
And when we did Godplane, parts of it were open, but parts of it were very structured. Especially we had like spotlight moments and challenges on each character. So no one was going to have to fight for a spotlight. Everyone was going to get their dedicated spotlight time. They didn't necessarily know when. It was going to be a big character challenge, struggle, revelation, character growth moment for everyone. And one of my favorite moments from it was David and I worked really hard to yes, make it match the character, but in the case of Candace, it was I'm writing this for Bo, but this is for the player behind the character, right? We work really hard to make those impactful. And you have, a couple solutions and a couple ways out. One of them, we'd written this whole scene. We're okay, this is how it's going to go. And then it's so what do we do? How do they get out of this? And I literally, in all caps, I'm IDK what he's going to do, but let's find out. That was my GM notes of I have no idea how he's going to get out of this, but I know the player will.
Mm-hmm. And there's a special moment if you do your job right and the players are having a good time and you orchestrate the setting in such a way whereby there's a dice roll. And Kay and I have talked on the show before about if you're making somebody roll dice, it should matter. If you're making somebody roll dice, failure should be an option and there should be consequences to it. But when there's a dice roll and everybody at the table holds their breath, and including you as a GM, because you don't know which way this is going. And it could go not necessarily good and bad, but it could go very good or it could go very poorly, or it could go this direction or that direction. And sometimes it's did the rogue manage to sneak past the guard to open the side door? Or did they slip and make a noise and now they have the entire castle bearing down on them? But I think everybody who's played a fair number of TTRPGs has a moment like that they remember, where a dice roll went really well or a dice roll went really poorly. And part of that is both the players and the GM orchestrating the build-up to that moment. And so you have a creative writing degree, all sorts of technical things, and you also know about the professional aspect of writing. And I was playing Stardew on Logomancy's channel last night, and I was bitching about Elliot and how I hated Elliot. And part of why I hate Elliot is because he does everything but write. And we all know someone who is a writer who does everything but write. But you know what it's like to need to produce on the spot, especially when you're not feeling the spirit, or however people put it. And that is a skill you train, that is a muscle you build up. And so as a GM, you as someone who also spins a lot of plates, what it's like to finally flex that muscle and do that thing that isn't necessarily easy for other people, but because you've practiced at it, because you've had to produce on a deadline, because you've had to pull something out of your ass, you root around in there and you're real good at finding what you're looking for. And then you help create those memorable moments.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so important to be mindful of when you're doing like an improv-based jamming style is to not be afraid of tropes. Tropes are tropes for a reason, and it's just a language. It's just a code system that we use in media, in storytelling, and it resonates with people for a reason, and it's familiar. So I think a common thing that will happen is people will try to improv storytelling or a moment that they're running on a game, and they'll get bogged down in asking themselves, well, is this original? Am I ripping off this other thing? But everything is ripping off of something else. There is no originality left in the world. And if you put something familiar before your audience, before your players, what have you, they'll resonate with it. They'll latch onto it, and they'll take the ball and they'll carry it into the end zone for you every time. So it's important to just not second guess yourself. I think those instincts are there for a reason.
Do you, and I'm sure you do, but do you know, because I also love those big dramatic dice roll moments. Do you know about the Brennan Lee Mulligan dramatic roll?
I don't know.
He has a thing that I am still, like, the minute I heard this, I'm like, that and the death saves are between the player and the GM. That's like yoink. Yeah. That I love these I will give the exception.
Okay,
if you play a life cleric, then I will let you, like, you, the life cleric, can know because that is your thing, right? But other than that, the rest of the party doesn't know how many death success you have. But he has a dramatic roll where it's roll 2d20 because it's a D&D. Roll 2d20, take whatever number is farthest from 10.
Okay.
So it is when, you have been building up to this. This is a big moment. It's either going to go well or terribly. These are we want no half measures. We don't want this to be like it is the best or the worst it can be. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
I really love that too. It's something we don't talk about a lot, is the way that, something we don't talk about enough, certainly, I would say, is the way that certain mechanics have the ability to kind of alter your brain chemistry, for lack of a better term. Like, personally, the Brennan Lee Mulligan dramatical, the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me is they called me Brennan Lee Hooligan. And that's still
good.
my name in Discord.
That's amazing.
The nicest thing anybody's ever said to me, and I'll carry it with me until the day I die. But one of the most meaningful things that that have happened in the TTRPG space within the last several years is from, I think originally, I know it from two systems, both powered by the Apocalypse, but Brindlewood Bay and then Apocalypse Keys. And both of those games, Brindlewood Bay is kind of like Murder, She Wrote, the TTRPG. And then Apocalypse Keys is like Hellboy, the TTRPG. And I wrote my thesis on Hellboy. That's why that's back there. But sorry, I just saw the bot. Threw me off. In Brindlewood Bay and Apocalypse Keys, both of these are mystery-based games. And I think anyone who has tried to GM a game that has a mystery can speak. It's so hard. It's so hard. And the way that they do that in both of those systems is, as the GM, you don't have an answer for the mystery. You don't go into it. Instead, you have a list of keys or clues, depending on which system you're running. And they're little things like in Apocalypse Keys, it might be like your own reflection wails at you in a mirror, or it could be a physical object like a comb that was left on the floor. And you have this list that you have when you go into the game, and you just pepper those into the story. There are mechanics where you roll, and it'll say you get a clue as a result of this. You get a key as a result of this. And at the end of the mystery, when they think they have enough clues or keys, they put them together, and they decide what the mystery is based on the clues that they have found. The players come together, and they put those together, and then they roll to determine how right they are. And if they get a full success, they nailed it. They solved the mystery. If they get a mixed success, they solve the mystery, but maybe they missed something. If they fail, something horrible happens, and they're completely wrong. They're completely off base. And that is I think that is something that everybody should try at least once. Everybody who's going to run a game should try running one of those games at least once, because the things people come up with when you just put clues in front of them and say, what do you think happened here, are so much cooler than anything that you are going to come up with alone in your room planning out your session.
Absolutely.
The butler did it in the trash can. He's very flexible.
Yeah, exactly.
The number of sharp turns that we've made, where it's like, okay, this is going to happen. We heard wolves howling while camping? Is the moon full? Is it werewolf? It is now. Where's the stat block?
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of Brennan Lee Mulligan, I don't know if you've watched Of Mice and Murder.
I don't think I've seen that one.
One of my favorite. It's a really old one, but it's Brennan Lee Mulligan running a murder mystery in D&D 5e, and that's challenging. And it's also with a lot of the dropout cast, so there's not a lot of really experienced TTRPG performers, right? So that's another challenge. Which those are great, but in a mystery, that makes it even more challenging. And at one point, there's a ghost in the mirror, and yes, they're animals, right? That's why it's Of Mice and Murder. But they're animals, but it's supposed to be a Sherlock Holmesian, grounded in reality. And it was so good. And at one point, one of the characters sees a ghost in a mirror and rolls, superstition to try to understand it, and rolls a nat 20. And you just see smoke coming out of Brennan Lee Mulligan's ears because he's like, I will always honor a nat 20. How do I honor a nat 20 with a ghost in a game where... Yeah. So that's a really cool system to be able to avoid that situation of, oh, well, the dice and I just painted me into a corner. Exactly.
Yeah, you look down at that 20 and you're like, well, okay, by all rights, this should be the end of it, right? A well-timed D20 roll will what's the saying? No plan survives first contact, but it's no plan survives first contact with a natural 20. No plan survives first contact with players, full stop. Correct. With a natural 20, it's
no
even worse.
plan survives first contact with a K.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a Chaos Gremlin. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, man.
I didn't break Mimics and Misfits game either. It was just a third level spell. That's all it was. It was just one third level spell.
I am a bad monkey because I don't get to watch every game that Kay is in. But every game I have seen, Kay has come up with something where the GM has been like, how do I address this? What do I do now? Kay has even done that in Baldur's Gate. Not only has Kay talked our way out of multiple encounters, but Kay is seen an encounter and been like, I'm sure I have something for this. And then a circle of daggers goes somewhere, and then everything dies immediately. And I'm like, where, how, what? And then, Kinley skips off into the distance.
But and that's you can't break a game that has no planning behind it. So
yeah,
that's the benefit of that.
Yeah, well, man, yeah, you were saved a lot of blood pressure spikes because you're not out here deleting things on your computer or literally ripping up pieces of paper and throwing them into the air.
I never hit Control Enter.
There is really no joy though of being like, oh, okay, your character has this thing going on, and your character has this thing going on. Those two things are related. And then you just step back and watch people
Okay, what is the spell with the house?
Tiny Hut, Liederman's Tiny Hut.
Yeah, I've watched Kay weaponize Tiny Hut multiple times. Always a good time.
Always a good time.
I mean, we watched someone weaponize levitate.
Oh man! Oh, listen, that's gonna be a treat. That's to be released. But ooh-wee, is that gonna be a good time?
Yeah, my poor little slimy boy couldn't do anything except spin. Literally,
And
he
it's-
couldn't even sit on it. He could only spin.
Mhm.
And because Kay and I co-GM games that we run on stream, when moments like this happen, you're not defeating one GM, you're defeating two. And so like, you know, my mic will be muted, but even with a muted mic, I'm sure Kay can hear the clickety clacks of the furious typing as I'm trying to come up with something around the thing that someone did who just broke an encounter that I spent weeks putting together. No, it's good.
I can hear the facepalm from across the country. But, Will, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your and just your great energy, right? Like you would never know that you're the meanest GM because you're just so chill and calm. And I say the meanest GM with all the love because I love a GM who will use. We talk about daggers in every character should have at least 3 daggers, and they're not to you. There are daggers in the back that the GM can just go. Pay attention now.
I will say, I think this mean GM reputation is unearned. I don't consider myself a mean GM. I've always said my DM philosophy, my storytelling philosophy is that I will give you everything you've ever wanted. You just might have to work for it first.
It's just going to hurt real bad.
Yeah, I have a very dear friend who is a GM for me, who, you know, when I was explaining some of my character backstories and how I'm like, I can't wait for this to be weaponized against me. She's like, is this how a pain kink manifests in an asexual? And I'm like, how fucking dare you perceive me like that?
I've never been so seen.
Right. Please stop perceiving me for like 5
Thanks,
seconds.
I hate
Exactly.
it. I did not consent to be perceived today. But we frequently end a game with, fuck you, Will, affectionate.
It's true. It's true. Another thing that I'm a firm believer of in content creation, TTRPG content creation, is ending on a cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that is,
definitely.
That's where that comes from.
I
But
learned-
I will...
I can talk who I learned that from because we don't talk about that person anymore. Continue.
That's fair. That's very fair. I will say, as if we're wrapping up, if we're starting to finish, I just thought of this, that speaking of meeting before officially meeting at conventions and things like that, Kay, you and I met at PAX Unplugged
Yes.
this last year, very, very briefly. And I just wanted to say that I have had this little dot pressy clicky thing
Fidget
on my
toy.
desk, this fidget toy on my desk since I got back from PAX Unplugged, and it is the only thing that I will regularly mess with when I'm sitting here.
I am so glad when we were putting together, like, because again, I've worked a lot of conventions as a journalist, as a booth, as press, and I'm like, let's put these together. You know, what are some little goodie bags that people actually need? Y'all, I found the formula, and I actually, the next thing I want to add is I want to get those individually wrapped aspirin things.
Ooh,
Because every aspirin is good, but throat lozenge, because by Sunday, your throat's gone.
Sure.
D20, because obviously. We did suckers, so you had a little bit of sugar rush when you're just nothing else to, and a fidget toy. And then
Yep.
obviously your cart. But the fidget toys, I had people hunting me down, going,
Yeah.
are you the one with the fidget toys? I won't say who, because I know she'd be fine with it, but I also don't want to call them out. But I gave someone a fidget that I was on panel with, and I gave them the thing. And they sat there and they bent it in half. And the entire time we're just popping back and forth with it bent in half, just looking straight at the audience. I'm like, this was a good addition.
Yeah, you nailed it. That was like what, eight months ago, something like that, and I still got it.
I am so glad because, yeah, like we say, be kind to yourself and be excellent to others. You know, so many times, especially at conventions, you end up with a bunch of crap you don't want or need.
It's true.
So if I'm going to ask you to take up space in your bag or your pocket, it should be small, it should be light, and it should be useful.
Absolutely.
That's my philosophy on goodies. Also, if you walk around a convention with throat lozenges, I have gotten so many free enamel pins because someone's been checking out. I've been in line at the t-shirt place with a friend, and the poor person is like, t-shirts are, and I just hand them a lozenge and they're like, take something, anything, you just saved my life.
Those
Snacks are also good.
Some of us have bad vocal cords, and we appreciate that deeply.
The throat
Again,
lozenge.
even those. Even those without bad vocal cords, by the end of a convention, if you're having to like carny call people at your booth, it's required.
That is true.
The throat lozenge is to conventions what the having a lighter outside of a bar is to being at a bar.
At 3 a.m.
Right.
especially.
Yeah, like you are going to be an important resource and people are going to like you.
You're going to make friends.
Yes, absolutely. And now, unfortunately, the other good thing that I am adding to goodie bags is drink covers.
Yeah, never a bad idea.
Yeah.
It sucks that that's where we are. But
Sure
that's
does.
where we are. Talking is hard. Conventions have dry air. Keep hydrated, not only for your body, but also for your voice.
Yep.
Exactly. So, Will, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing all the stuff that you do. I cannot wait for. It's not Beyond the Woods. It's not. It's
Voices in the Woods.
Voices in the
Voices in
Woods.
the Woods.
I'm like
Wood.
I'm nearing the end of what my manic brain can do. I'm like, oh
I
no,
get it.
we're grasping. Thank you, chat, for a bar or queer party. Exactly. Thank you, chat, for hanging out. You always make this so fun. We had so many incredible comments, and we only do the show. We didn't intend to do the show long term, but people kept showing up and talking and saying, I learned a thing, or I got to promote a thing that I was really excited about, and that's why we still do this. This was not in the plans, so thank you all so much. Will, where can people find you? And I mean, if you're here, they should obviously know why, but like, tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me pretty much all over the internet at a Will M Scream, mostly active on the smoking wreckage of Twitter and Instagram occasionally, although these days Instagram is mostly just kitten pictures. That might be what you're after, and that's fine. If you want those, that's where to go. Other than that, you can catch me over on twitch.tv/live from the apocalypse, where we're live several times a week. I don't think there's anything coming up this week particularly. I think it's kind of a quiet week for us. I'll be there Saturday around 11 a.m. running what we affectionately call our Saturday morning cartoon, which is a 5e homebrew game that I run. The only 5e game that I have ever run and probably ever will run, which is about a group of high school students from Ohio who have been trapped in a fantasy world for 10 years. And we discussed Dorian Black in the chat. He is part of that game. If you liked Body and Soul or some other things here on K.Cults, you can check that out. Twitch.tv/live from the apocalypse. Alternating Thursdays, I run a game called God Complex over on Entropy Emporium, which is a game about piloting the corpses of dead mechs, piloting the corpses of dead gods, which have been turned into mech suits to fight space kaiju.
I did not realize that a collection of words could arouse me so, and yet here we are.
That is a common reaction. I nailed that pitch. Nailed that concept.
100%.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm about to start a game over on Entropy Emporium.
Yeah, I'm very
excited
about it.
So excited.
And I think, everything else you can catch me I think the URL is awillemscream.lol.
Yes.
Which is kind of the virtual calling card if you want to know where to find me. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Thank you so much. As I said before, y'all, find us here Thursday and Friday. We're going to be doing Baldur's Gate 3. That is kind of it for this week. However, next week, we're going to be here doing this again, and that's going to be cool. Next week, Wednesday the 17th, come back for the final game of Magnificent Pride, where Candace will be GMing Monster Hearts. It's an incredible group. I'm not going to say who they are because there might have to be a little bit of a roster change. Waiting on that. Scheduling, TTRPGs, it's great. We roll with the punches. It's going to be it's going to be the final game of our Magnificent Pride. And Thursday, we're doing Baldur's Gate. Friday, David might be streaming solo. I'm not sure, but I'm going to be over on Entropy Emporium playing Weird Wild's War, which those of you who joined us for Magnificent Pride, if you liked Brandon, all I'm saying is you should definitely come check out the Weird Wild's War, because it's going to be pretty cool.
Brandon gives me not D6 psychic damage, but D10 with bonuses psychic damage.
I mean, I think he gives you at least 2d6 plus bonuses. David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here? It is going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. Pacific. Thank you. Yes, we will. We'll be retweeting that as we get closer. And if you like short form content, the short form content from our incredible Juneteenth game is about to go out. It's all uploaded, y'all. I just have to write copy. And I don't know. You know how brains sometimes, my brain would rather do anything other than write copy. It shouldn't be that hard. But my brain refuses. Midnight. I mean, I'm glad it doesn't clash with anything, but that's
late.
still rough. Weird Wilds also doesn't start till 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. Pacific. So that won't be fun for you, but I'm very excited to get to play Brandon. And while we've got a number of these people here, let us say, we were also nominated for a Crit Award. We were up for Best Twitch Channel 2 years or older, which is absolutely bananas. But again, we did not get that because of us. We got that because we have incredible people like Candace and Dorian Black Q, coming on and running games for us. We have people like Will and all of y'all coming on and talking about their projects, and our incredible chat hanging out. And I still don't know who nominated us, but thank you so much. It was, I think I said this, we found out while we were producing one of the games for Magnificent Pride, and we're like, can't react, can't distract players. We're in the group, can't react. So thank you all. You all are wonderful. And David.
I just said I voted for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here?
I need to learn video editing so Kay doesn't implode like a dark star. And this is the Chaotic Wholesome Presents Table Talk Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be not just a GM but a master GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on inclusivity and intersectionality so that everybody can have a good time.
And we are going to go right over someone that's going to be a David call today. But thank you again. Go check out Live from the Apocalypse. Go follow Will. And thank you to everyone who voted in the Crit Awards. And I can't wait to see who all wins. As a reminder, awards are great. They're very nice. They make it easier to get sponsors. But awards are not everything. And just because you are not nominated doesn't mean you are not as good or better than people who are nominated. It's just how these things work. So you are awesome. Thank you for hanging out. Be kind to yourself, be excellent to others, and we will see you next time.